Let's bring in retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Richard Kolko. Welcome back to The Story Is.
Thank you. Good evening.
So why was this guy out of jail? Are there other people in this situation? Are these people even being tracked?
Great question. He's out of jail because basically he did his time, may have gotten off for good behavior, and then was given probation, federal probation. Federal probation means he has to check in on a regular basis, and probation officers are trained to recognize if something is unusual, and they might pick up the phone or contact the FBI and say, this person is acting unusual and needs to be looked into. But the number of people and the actual work it takes to track or follow people after they've served their time, that's too manpower and investigatively intensive for an agency even as large as the FBI to take on. And plus, you need a predicate. If he served his time, doing probation, not breaking any other crimes, which he obviously did at some point, you can't just follow him around.
So basically, there could be other people in a similar situation out there, right?
Not only could be, probably are. There are people that have served their time. They can become more radicalized while in prison, as you know. And the way they come out, even if they're going to probation and fulfill the requirements for their release, we have recidivism, in the system. So certainly the potential is there and possibility is there. And this was, very awful circumstances here.
So we've seen 4 significant attacks on the homeland in the last 2 weeks since this war started. Is this potentially start of something bigger, other attacks mimicking that? And how, as the FBI, do you work to control that?
Well, bigger, I certainly hope not. Are there going to be more of them? Unfortunately, I think so. The chances that there will be more inspired attacks throughout the United States is probably likely. And the FBI and the intelligence community probably knows that that's possibly going to happen. But that doesn't mean people need to live their life in a panic. Your actual chance of being caught up in one of these attacks is very slim. I don't take anything away from the people that were injured or wounded or killed over the past couple of days. But it's going to happen. As long as this military operation continues in Iran, we can expect this. But you can also see when you look at what he did or how he planned this attack, he didn't come up with this on his own. I think Jallo had ideas that he probably got right off Wikipedia on, how to carry out this attack. Did a little research, and he looked at the Fort Hood attack, Major Hassan back in, I think it was 2009, who wanted to kill military personnel. And he did something, very similar there. Threw this together fairly quickly, I believe.
So we've heard concerns about the so-called sleeper cells that Iran may activate in the country. We haven't seen a lot of examples of that yet. President Trump earlier in the week talked about that possibility, was asked about it, and then talked about the fact that the Democrats and Republicans have not funded the Department of Homeland Security. And here's what he said.
Yeah, we know a lot about them. The biggest problem we have is the Democrat shutdown. We know a lot about them, but the shutdown doesn't allow us to do what we have to do.
Do you think that investigations into sleeper cells will be hampered in any way by the DHS shutdown? And how does that work in terms of tracking that possibility?
I'm not sure if they've been hampered, but I can be positive that the shutdown is not helping any investigations that need to be ongoing or to be initiated. You got DHS people working without paychecks, makes it very difficult. Over time, morale will go down. There's a lot of other things that take over their mind as they have to pay their bills and things like that. But the people that work in these organizations, in DHS, in the FBI, in the intelligence community, they're dedicated to national security, keeping the country safe, keeping fellow Americans safe. I think, and very strongly, that they will do their job even without the funding of DHS, but it's certainly time for Congress to pay the men and women that are out there working hard to help keep our country safe.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with the politics of all this. They just want to do their jobs. Richard Kolko, thank you so much for your insight. Have a great weekend.
You too.